During my gap year from college, I fell deeply in love with a woman I met while working a part-time job. She was about the age of my mother. To this day, I find myself naturally drawn to older women, an inclination I can't seem to avoid. I had taken a year off after my junior year of college. With graduation looming, I faced the daunting prospect of entering the job market unprepared. Having focused solely on my studies up until then, I decided to take a break to prepare for certification and catch up on my studies. During my gap year, I lived diligently according to plan, meeting up with friends who were also taking time off, encouraging each other along the way. Once I had accomplished what I set out to do, I found myself with some spare time. That's when my aunt, who owned a restaurant a couple of hours away from our house, reached out. Knowing I was preparing to return to school, she asked for my help with the restaurant. Despite the restaurant's reputation as a culinary destination, attracting customers from far and wide, I hesitated, anticipating the hard work it entailed. However, the promise of being paid as well as a long-standing employee convinced me to pack my bags and head to her town. Working in the restaurant was relentless. It was financially rewarding but physically demanding. The work never seemed to end, from cleaning, ordering and preparing ingredients, washing dishes, greeting customers, managing reviews, to overseeing staff. My aunt worked tirelessly. I primarily served tables, a task made easier by my previous experience in the field. I was quick to respond to customers' calls. My aunt prioritized the staff's health, providing vitamins and treating everyone to a meal on good days, believing that well-treated employees would work harder and provide better service. She was a savvy business owner who knew how to manage people effectively. On rare occasions when the restaurant was empty, we would close early and take a break. She treated her staff like family, always ensuring we had fresh seasonal fruit and snacks. Despite any possible complaints, her efforts led to high sales every day. Now, let me tell you about my Aunt Annalise, who left a lasting impression on me. When I arrived at her restaurant, Aunt Annalise was in her late 40s. My aunt worked in the kitchen. I heard she's been on her own since her husband left. She got married young, and her kids are all grown up now, working and living their own lives. She mentioned that her children are financially independent, so she could work just for fun if she wanted. But she's healthy and still wants to work hard as long as she's able. I didn't have any friends at my aunt's restaurant, and after finishing work, I found myself bored. But I knew I'd be going home soon, so instead of trying to make a girlfriend, I just surfed the internet or played some games to cool off. There was this one day at Aunt Annalise's restaurant. After I got used to the restaurant work, I decided to stay overnight in the adjacent living quarters. Aunt Annalise told me I could help myself to the main course leftovers if I got hungry late at night. That evening, I was sitting in the restaurant, drinking beer with my meal. Preparing to close, Aunt Annalise saw me drinking alone and suggested we chat, saying it looked lonely to drink by myself. Aunt Annalise was not only good in the kitchen, but she was also a beauty that would make customers take a second look when she was in the dining area. I thought it was amazing how such a beauty spent her day in front of a hot stove. Aunt Annalise then grabbed several bottles of beer from the fridge and started telling her story. She met her husband in her early 20s and got pregnant, which led to their marriage. The first few years were truly happy. Then one day, A woman called her, claiming she had been with her husband since her late teens, knew about their marriage, and now wanted her man back. It turned out her husband had been seeing another woman all this time, and this woman acted as if she were his wife, which was shocking to Aunt Annalise. Her husband had been leading a double life with this woman since high school. Although they had no children together, Aunt Annalise couldn't bring herself to leave him immediately because of their children, so she endured and lived as if they were still married until the kids were grown. Despite having no other skills to be financially independent, her husband shamelessly spent nights at the other woman's house, while Aunt Annalise did whatever jobs she could to support and educate their children. Thankfully, her daughters grew up well, graduated from college, and landed jobs in reputable companies. The day her youngest daughter got accepted into college, Aunt Annalise threw the divorce papers at her husband. Aunt Annalise's husband left without a word of apology, simply declaring that he was leaving because the kids were grown and he wouldn't be paying child support. He never looked back. Her daughters, still affected by their father's lack of affection, refused to even mention him. After that, Aunt Annalise focused solely on her daughters, and it's been a bit over a year since she started working at the restaurant. She treats her staff incredibly well, often giving unexpected bonuses that really help out with the household expenses. It angers me to think about it leaving such a wonderful woman for a first love. As a man, it feels utterly wrong. After a few drinks, Aunt Annalise broke down, saying she felt like she had been conned. She was in her early 20s, full of energy and beauty, embarking on her first relationship and building a family, only to end up like this. Seeing Aunt Annalise cry her heart out, I didn't know what to do, but ended up holding her hand. Aunt Annalise's restaurant actually consists of 2 buildings, the main one for the restaurant and a small residential building next to it. On days she couldn't go home, she'd stay in the residential building, and sometimes the staff would rest there during breaks. I've stayed over at her place, but sometimes I slept in the residential building too. After calming down, Aunt Annalise said she was heading home, and I was getting ready to stay in the residential building. Then she came knocking, saying she had told a child younger than her own daughter everything and asked me to pretend not to know anything in the future. I agreed, of course. She wanted to go home, but felt too weak and decided to sit for a while. Having had a few relationships in college, I immediately picked up on the signs. We spent the rest of the night together. Since then, we've been exchanging meaningful glances at the restaurant, our secret known to no one. Aunt Annalise would pretend to leave work, waiting until the staff had gone, and then we'd be together in the residential building. Meeting Aunt Annalise while working part-time has been a real blessing. It's been 4 years now. I've landed a job at my desired company and work hard. On my first payday, I bought Aunt Annalise a scarf that suited her perfectly, and she smiled like a young girl, saying she felt loved. Aunt Annalise, now well into her 50s, still holds a special place in my heart as a beloved woman. With my wedding to my girlfriend 3 months away, I guess it's time to end things with Aunt Annalise, right? I'm not sure how I'll cope with missing her, the woman who matured me during my reckless 20s, but that's a worry for another day.